So, hello, it's Nick Coleman here, one of the directors of History's Greatest Aircraft and Plane Resurrection. I've got my retro Plane Resurrection top on. We are trying to make some extra content for you, trying to make some long-form content that hopefully you'll be interested in. But we come to a very, very, very special location. I can't tell you where that location is for security purposes. What I can tell you is it's in the east of England. So back in World War II, obviously a lot of soldiers, a lot of airmen and so on got lost, were killed, and tragically their bodies, they never made it back. Those warriors never came home. There's an operation called and I'm going to make sure that I got it right, the DPAA, which is the Defense, Prisoner of War and Missing in Action Accounting Agency. So they account for those missing troops. So they go to the battlefields of Europe, they go to the Pacific, they also go to Vietnam and those other wars where there are missing troops and they bring them home. They're very heavily involved here. They've brought in an organisation called Cotswold Archaeology, and their mission is to find the pilot of a B-17 that crashed.
One of the great things about this project is it is a community project, and that means that we can have anyone from any level, and obviously there's a strong military element here with veterans and the serving personnel, but we do have local volunteers as well who are just residents in this area, and so this is their local heritage, and it should be accessible to people to get involved and participate in a project that is actively finding out about some aspect of that local heritage.
We are digging the crash crater, we think is the crash and explosion crater of a 1944 B-17 bomber, American heavy bomber, that was flying as part of Operation Aphrodite, which was a secret mission at the time, and this was one of the first plane that went down for that mission.
When we did it back in 1975, it was nowhere near as professional as these guys are, because this is now Cotswold Archaeology. As you can see, as you look around, it's organised, it's methodical, because they're searching for the pilot. Aviation archaeology back then was quite literally get landowners' permission, bring spades, be enthusiastic and work your socks off on it and dig down by hand, see what we could recover. And to our surprise, we recovered the battered remnants of an engine, which is in one of the local museums, piece of undercarriage, and lots and lots of fragments.
Now, some of you may think, especially based on things we've seen like the excavations that our colleague Ian McLachlan, who many of you will know as our historian, you'll think, well, this should be fairly straightforward. A B-17 crashes, you look through the wreckage and you see what you can find. This, though, is different. Come walk with me and I'll tell you why. Towards the end of the war, there was a great need to do something about very hardened sites. So places like V1 emplacements, where the V1s were fired from in France, the Americans decided that one of the uses for heavily wary planes like B-17 and some variants of the B-24, the privateer, the Navy version with a single tail, they decided there might be a possibility to turn them into an early form of cruise missile. Pack the whole aircraft with explosives, so not just in the bomb bay, they would pack the whole aircraft with explosives. Torpex, actually a naval explosive used, as you might guess from the name, in torpedoes. They pack the whole aircraft with it. It wouldn't necessarily have a proximity fuse or anything else that you're used to in a normal bomb. They would actually be wrapped with fuse cord. And the idea was, take that aircraft, fly it with a pilot, maybe with a co-pilot as well. They would then exit the aircraft on this side of the coast in the UK, jump out, and then a very early crude form of remote control with a television camera, again an early crude television camera in the nose of the aircraft, would be used to fly the aircraft on over the channel. A couple of motherships with it, something like a couple of Mosquitoes or P-47s would be watching it, or P-38s. Fly it over, fly it into the target. That was the idea. You needed a pilot and a co-pilot to take it to height, get it straight and level, jump out and let go. Didn't quite work like that. And that's the reason that we're looking at this site here.
And this plane went down with the pilot on board and not the co-pilot. Co-pilot got out. The pilot helped save the co-pilot's life by kicking him out when his parachute got stuck.
Take you over to meet somebody from Cotswold Archaeology, a young lady called Candice, and she's going to tell us some of exactly what happened. Tell us what happened and tell us why we're here and why we're looking at this.
Yeah, so this was kind of the initial mission for that project. It was their first run of it, and it was their first time sending him out and all of that. And while he was on his mission, on their way to send the bombers to their target, there were some technical malfunctions that he experienced, and him and his crewmate, Elmer Most, did everything they could to account for these malfunctions, made some adjustments, tried to stabilize it, fought until the very end of it, really. And once it reached a point where it was clear that the malfunction, couldn't be fixed, the mission became, how do we get this out of a space where it becomes dangerous, and how do we get ourselves to safety as well? Yeah, so, John Fisher was an incredible pilot by the sounds of it, stand-up guy as well. He, while they were coming over here, he was stabilizing the plane. His engineer attempted to bail out, got stuck in the hatch, and John Fisher actually saved his life. Kicked him out of the hatch because he got caught on his parachute, so he made it to safety. And John Fisher returned to the controls to try and stabilize it and successfully clear the area. Unfortunately, as you know, he lost his life in that attempt. And that's why we're here. We're here to try and find him and bring him home because he didn't make it home in the end.
Here, in this actual photography of one of the 19 missions from an English airbase, you see the bomber responding to the simple control. Some of these missions were dispatched against German installations in France, but they had only a slight degree of success.
It's a unique site almost, this. It's first of all, a real privilege to be part of it, but it's a real challenge. We've got a big crater, it's full of water, it's full of 80 years worth of sludge and organic matter that we've got to get through. But to be able to work with the veterans, the military personnel, it adds that whole new dimension. And it brings in the well-being aspect as well for participating in archaeology and that military insight as well. We've got guys who maintain modern aircraft. So some of the components, not all of them of course, but some of them are at least familiar to them. So they can look at random scraps that come out of the ground and say, that's from an engine, that's from an intercooler, that's from a turbocharger, for example. So it's incredibly valuable to have their insight as well.
We've got mixed reviews as well on whether or not he was in the plane fully at the time, whether he was in the cockpit or trying to exit the plane. Either way, he's been subject to quite a severe explosion. A large amount of explosive has gone off, then presumably the fuel tanks have also exploded and so on. So we're looking for any remains we can find of John Fisher, any personal effects, any dog tags, just anything to really show that he was definitely here, that this is his gravesite, and anything that we can hopefully repatriate for his surviving family and friends back in America.
So now we're going to take a look. We're going to go and look at the surprising level of evidence that we've got that remains. Massive explosion. I think the reference is to 15 acres of this stuff that was blown away. Trees that probably would have been similar size to this, simply blown away. This is the kind of stuff, look, this is what people are starting with. You could pick that up, you would walk through here and you'd probably discard that and think, well, it's just a stone that's in here. And you've got, a little piece of rubber pipe in there. Could be from the B-17, could be from a Massey Ferguson tractor that broke down here in 1973, who knows? You got some material there. I'm going to pick this up very delicately. Look, you can see the level of that's burnt. So if you look at that, I mean, it's a tiny shard of aluminium, aluminum, as our American friends would say. Could be burnt, could just be black paint on it, could be nothing to do with the B-17 whatsoever. This is active woodland and farmland. You don't know. That could be aluminium, Could be steel. Well, it's not steel, it's too light. But it could also be stone. So it's a really, really difficult one to say. The team that's been on site here working is simply enormous. 30, 40 people at some time. But it's not like a big $1 million operation. The beauty of this is an awful lot of the folks here are volunteers. And they're volunteers from the local USAF bases, Mildenhall and Lakenheath. Many of you will know those. And in fact, if you're watching this in America, you may have served at Mildenhall, Lakenheath, in which case, thank you for your service. We've also had folks here from Operation Nightingale in the UK, which is an initiative that takes veterans, particularly those with PTSD and PTSS or wounded veterans, who actually go and work on archaeological projects as part of their recovery or as part of assistance to them. A fantastic, fantastic operation, and something that we're seeking to support more. Now, as you're watching this, if you want to make comments, by all means do make some comments below. If you're new to the History's Greatest Aircraft site, all of the comments are looked at and replied wherever we can by real working members of the team. And I'll tell you what we're going to do just for a moment here. I'm going to show you one or two of the people who are behind the cameras on this. So Luke is behind here. We're going to get a cutaway from the other camera. That's Luke, our production director. He has been actively here on this dig, physically digging with the folks. Then we've got Rachel. Some of you will remember Rachel. She's one of our editors, producers and so on. Some of you will have seen Rachel flying in the Yak 3 a few weeks back. Byron's got a particularly close allegiance to this, because Byron and I flew in Texas Raiders, the B-17 that was tragically lost over in Dallas, at Wings Over Dallas. We flew in Texas Raiders a few weeks before that tragic event, so obviously that brings us very close to us. And also here we've got Ella Jackson, who is one of our new team. She's development producer on this. And over there in the far distance, many of you will already know her, is Ellie Coleman, our managing director, producer, and one of the first producers on the old Plane Resurrection series. She's not doing too much today because she is with child. Here's some of the big pieces that have been found. So this really leads us into quite an interesting situation. So this, for instance, is probably part of the undercarriage. This probably went onto the bottom of the oleo, and that's probably part of the retraction mechanism. We've had our good friend Brad Pilgrim, who many of you will know from the B-29 episode, the B-24 episode, and the Yak episode, and everything that Brad Pilgrim has been in. The guy used to operate for the Commemorative Air Force. He's still very closely involved with them. Our dear friend Brad Pilgrim has actually helped us today, has been on from the States, has been on and identified some parts. So for instance, over here you've got part of an ignition system. So there you've got what I think a lot of people who, you know, are as old as me and have driven cars would recognise as regular spark plug leads. Now I'm going to go on a tangent here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I'm asking myself, or is it in fact 8 and there's one that's packed in there? I've got to say, I don't know how many cylinders were on that right engine. Any offers from the rest of our team here? How many cylinders? Would it have been a double row? I don't know. Somebody will tell us. Yeah, I think it might have been 18 cylinders, so it would have been a double row and 9. Anyway, somebody will tell us, I'm sure, in the comments. I can feel you writing already. So that's part of the ignition system. This is fascinating because it's actually got a maker's mark on it. It's the something or other steel co. And there was another couple of pieces that Brad identified. This is from a dynamo. So that would have been bolted to the engine, providing electrical power. The weight of that is tremendous. You can imagine the force needed for that. In the meantime though, the team here continue to look. They've been on site for a couple of weeks so far. They have a couple of weeks more to do, a couple of weeks more to go. There's an awful lot of folks here who are looking for that slightest indication, that smallest shard of once living evidence that's going to show us that definitively this is the last resting place of John Fisher, and we can then take him home to somewhere appropriate, either in his home state of New York or one of the other military cemeteries. It's an enduring mystery, as mysterious really as the Aphrodite and Anvil missions themselves, which were, I'm afraid, unsuccessful. There we go, a ramble from me. I hope that's interested you. I hope it's been useful. I've got to pay tribute to all of the folks who are involved here. The incredible team from the Cotswold Archaeology outfit. Really an amazing job they've pulled together here. We want to thank Sam, Rosanna, and all the folks that we've got involved, and indeed all of these volunteers. It's the loss of people like John Fisher. It's what they gave. They gave the ultimate price that leaves us free to argue amongst ourselves about politics. And that's where I'll leave you, from a dig site somewhere deep in East Anglia. I wish you and all those who are serving for us all over the world, keeping us free, protecting our freedom of speech, the very best, and we'll keep you updated.